Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Critters. And if you're joining us, we love interacting with our live stream viewers. And if not, we have several people that like to watch our replays. And we thank you for that. And we thank you for all the shares. There's a good amount of work that goes into this every week. Hey, Tim. Hey, Kim. There's a good amount of work that goes into this every week. Myself, the manager Karen Pratt, and Crystal Phelps, social media director, we meet and try to come up with different topics. We've got it scheduled for the next couple of months. So today we're with Dr. Jason Crean. Last week we were with Dr. Deb Jones. And in a couple of weeks, we'll be going live with Nancy Forrester in Key West, because yes, I will be there. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Critters. My name is Lara Joseph, owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We are an international educational center which we teach people worldwide through our live streaming services about understanding animal behavior and training using applied behavior analysis and positive reinforcement. So today we have Dr. Jason Crean is with us, and he's going to be talking about the benefits of apple cider vinegar. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Here he comes. Yay! Can you hear me,
Hey.
Jason?
Yes. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am cold. Very cold.
We were just talking about this. I was like, wow, you have beautiful lighting today. And he goes, what'd you say?
It's the light reflecting off the more than a foot of snow outside my window.
It's
brutal.
As I sit here in Northwest Ohio praying for snow, doing the snow dance, I know every single time I do it, Jason, I'm just like, I know Jason is over there going, damn you, Laura.
We get along. We agree on everything except the weather.
Oh, okay. So, Jason, bear with me real quick. I'm just going to do a recap of some different work that the volunteers have been doing throughout the week here. This is something new we've started adding to our show. So we'll split some screens here. We had some visitors this week with Snow, our deaf and blind border collie. And I like to bring people in. It's great socialization for Snow, and it really helps teach people how animals communicate and understand via being able to, in Snow's case, feel body language. So here, everybody's giving her the attention when she lays on the ground versus jumping. So that's how we've modified her behavior. Did some great live streaming and education of showing people how we can groom animals without the use of force. And in an upcoming episode of Coffee with the Critters, it's either next week or the following week, we're going to be discussing how to train our animals for the veterinary visit and for grooming. Very important. Otherwise, you would have to put the pig under temporarily to trim his hooves, which can be obviously dangerous. Here's some of my work with Suki, our blue-fronted Amazon. We're getting ready to bring different volunteers. We're showing the beginning steps of training, and we're doing those via our live streams in the Parrot Project. With Suki, she's not going to let anybody in her cage. So we're showing the live streaming steps of getting in her cage. And here is one of our volunteers, Amanda Gutek. She is working on different designs. She's in our enrichment team, and she's also starting to train some of the animals. Here she's putting together some foraging for our parrot, Rocky, Moluccan cockatoo. And we're doing live streams right now in the Parrot Project showing how to shape and teach an animal how to forage for their food. And then here's the awesome Dr. Deb Jones that was just in town last weekend. She's a psychologist and professor at Kent State University, working with her beloved Rocky our Moluccan here at the center. And here she is again working with Pocahontas, the African crested porcupine. So it's a joy for people who visit the center to have them interact and show how training works, even with an animal that you may have never encountered before. And then here's the awesome Crystal Phelps, our social media director. She helps me train one of our clients' dogs that comes in every week, Lily and Cash. And she's helping me. Here we're working on focus and control exercises. And then this is the last photo before we get started with the live stream. Those of you that follow the work that we do know that in our level 2 is our live stream group membership for professionals, trainers, and those that want to know more about how to understand using applied behavior analysis with animals. Happy but sad to say, Pocahontas went back to the zoo yesterday. So, I mean, the only good thing about that here is our bird room no longer smells like a porcupine. Jason, you laughed because you feel that smell.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
As soon as I brought her here, I had different zookeepers saying, how's that smell? And I was like, holy cow. A lot of times before I bring an animal in, I always ask, how does that animal defecate? That determines whether I bring it in or not. So
mammals are stinky.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why we bring in young ostriches, not older ostriches, because that poop gets very large. Okay, so we're here with Dr. Jason Crean, and I'm going to introduce you real quick, Jason, for those that may not know who you are. And Dr. Crean is a biologist. There's so many things, Jason. I could read your biography. It would take the first half hour.
It just means I'm too stupid to say no.
I was like, wow. Jason is a biologist, also a zoo consultant, aviculturist, public speaker, teacher, and a very good friend. So you've been on here with me a couple different times, Jason. Please feel free to add in anything that you want into your introduction.
That was more than enough.
But if you want to see more of Jason's work, we'll show this. I mean, you can find out more about him at beaksbirdhouse.com. We'll show this more at the end of the show. So, Jason, today's topic, we're going to talk about using the benefits of using apple cider vinegar with the animals in our care. And I know we discussed, I'd like to talk about how to implement it into their diets. I know here we we put it in water. I drink it myself in water. Can you start by telling us what are the benefits? Because I don't know.
That's a loaded question. So I host I run a group, Avian Raw Whole Food Nutrition. We have almost 6,800 members on there now. And this,
you can find that on Facebook, right?
Yes, it's on Facebook. And apple cider vinegar comes up a lot, and that's because the nature of the internet, is wrought with myth and misconception. So it is it's a little difficult to make claims about these natural products, and I use the word natural loosely because a lot of products use the word natural, and that can mean a lot of different things. It's a misnomer in many cases. So apple cider vinegar definitely has benefits, and if vinegar didn't have benefits in general, we wouldn't have used it for 10,000 years. There's a lot of claims out there, but I'll start to say that I'm not a veterinarian. I teach a course at the university that basically highlights animal nutrition called zoo biology. And Lara, you were part of that course as far as the training portion, the behavior portion. But when we talk about the effects of processing on foods, and I strive to feed absolutely nothing processed, nothing heated, things that use, just the natural biology of plants and animals. So vinegar is apple cider vinegar in particular. It's not a cure-all. Nothing is a cure-all. I'll start by saying that. I don't talk about it medicinally. That would be for vets to do, and I have used it medicinally under the guidance of my own vet, Dr. Karen Becker. And if you don't follow her on social media, you definitely should. Over 1 million other people are. She's just an amazing resource, and she has quite a bit of information about apple cider vinegar out on the web. But like I said, it's not a cure-all, and I don't recommend it as medicinal because I'm not qualified to do so. I can share how we use it and why we use it.
Can I ask you a question before you move on too much further?
Sure.
Can you talk about what we should pay attention to or be aware of when people use the word natural?
Sure. I think a lot of us who haven't been heavy into the research have to rely on labels, and labels can be very misleading. The word organic is thrown around a lot in this country, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's better. In this case, it does. I do recommend organic apple cider vinegar. I think what most people are using is Bragg's, Bragg. That seems to be the most readily available organic.
And it's with the mother, right?
With the mother, yep. It has to be with the mother. So vinegar comes in a lot of different forms. Vinegar is created through a two-step biological process where the first step is alcoholic fermentation, and that happens with the help of yeast. And yeast naturally takes the juice from apples, turns it into an alcohol-based liquid, and then vinegar follows in a second process called acetus fermentation. And that's done with specific bacteria, vinegar bacillus bacteria, that then transforms that alcohol-based liquid into a vinegar. There is about 5% in vinegar. There's about 5% acetic acid. So that acid is going to shift the liquid into a more, whatever you're putting it in, into a more acidic environment. Which makes it more difficult for certain bacteria to survive, which is the goal. You want only certain flora, certain bacteria, certain microbiome bacteria to survive in the gut, for example. And I'll talk more about microbiome later. But it does have to be with the mother. It does have to be unfiltered, organic, undistilled. Basically, you're looking for things that are not processed, unprocessed. This should follow the basic biological processes of fermentation.
Okay. So with that being said, something else you had just commented on, and I know you've spoke here a couple of times, and so I do know this from you. And I also I think I was looking at your Avian Raw Whole Foods Facebook page the other day. I know you said that you try to stay away from heating foods. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because the more you heat it with your protein, it becomes denatured. Is that correct?
Yeah. Heating. You're good. Yeah, that's awesome. Glad someone listens. The very nature of heating foods breaks things down. We heat a lot of foods because we have not evolved to stave off certain types of bacteria and things like that would inherently live in our food. And then breaking down cell walls and plants, for example, helps make it more digestible. What we don't pay attention to is heating foods also increases carcinogen loads. Things like in grains and seeds and nuts, acrylamide forms, because asparagine is an amino acid that is inherently found in all of those things. And the more you heat them, the more acrylamide forms. And that's a known carcinogen. So we avoid processed foods. I feed nothing but raw foods. I heat absolutely nothing. And I feed no types of processed foods. My birds get just raw whole foods, lots and lots of diversity every day.
And here's another thing: when people
Before I forget, it's not just birds. All of my reptiles, my dogs,
I was getting this
everybody
point.
is on a raw whole food diet. I know where you're going, so go
Yep.
ahead.
And a lot of people hear the word raw and they immediately think raw meat. Will you tell people that it's so much more than that?
Oh yeah, I mean, when it comes to dog and cat foods, raw food is, unprocessed meat-based diets, and I am a strong proponent of those, having seen the direct results on those within a matter of weeks in a host of different mammals, dogs and cats. Dr. Becker is another great source as far as raw whole foods go when it comes to mammals, and you should definitely check her out for that information. As far as birds go, we do feed seed. Seed is not a bad word. Seed is only a bad word if it's the only thing the bird is eating. But anything would be a bad word if it's the only thing a bird is eating. Our
Right.
birds have access to at least 50 different food items per day. We make mashes that consist of dry and soaked seeds, dry and soaked tree nuts like walnuts and pecans, things like that. Never any peanuts for a whole set of reasons, but veggies, fruits, all kinds of things that they have access to throughout the day. That is what we're talking about when we talk about raw whole food. None of that is processed. It's allowed. It's in its raw whole form. It's allowed to soak or sprout to activate it, which then transforms the macronutrients into different things. It increases digestibility. That sort of thing. That's why we do nothing but raw whole foods.
So I know we're talking a lot about, we've mentioned several things about birds. How do you incorporate apple cider vinegar with mammals?
Pretty much the same way, mixing it with foods. With raw whole foods, it's often added, especially if you're buying a commercially available frozen raw food. Some have apple cider vinegar in there, presumably to mimic some of the stomach acids in organ meats and things like that, but also the just its ability to stave off the flourishing of certain types of harmful bacteria.
And I know it's pretty strong. It smells strong. I mean, I can tell. We use it here. I sprinkle it in the mammal's water.
Mm-hmm.
I drink it myself every night before I eat dinner. And it's strong. And I know when I put it in the bird's water, I can tell when I walk in the bird room that apple cider vinegar has just been put in their water. So, I mean, because it's so strong, is there anything we can do to help with that taste?
Well, I mean, you can mix just about anything with apple cider vinegar.
I know I saw Christine mention here earlier, can she mix it with honey because of the taste?
Yeah, I mean, I think raw, unfiltered, locally grown honey is always. I think I take that myself to stave off seasonal allergies. My body's built up an immunity to some of those pollens that drive me nuts and wreak havoc. But yeah, I mean, you can add it to just about anything. We add it to drinking water. We add it to the sprout water when we're sprouting. I also use grapefruit seed extract for sprouting as well. Um, but I think adding it about a quarter cup to a gallon is ideal for most cases. For most, even for crop washes for chicks. If people are hand feeding baby birds, we use it as a crop wash to stave off yeast, so that yeast can't, progressively grow and flourish in that warm, moist environment that yeast loves so much.
Mhm.
So there's lots of ways that you can use it. Mixing it with raw whole foods and leaving it on is an option too. Some people are more paranoid than they need to be when it comes to leaving fresh foods out during the course of a day. And I often tell people cooked food spoils a lot less because you've destroyed it and you've just opened it up for bacteria to grow. But raw whole food, not as much. But if you're concerned about raw whole food, one of the things you can add is apple cider vinegar to stave off and keep it fresh throughout the day if you have to work like most people do.
So it
You
helps
know,
keep it fresh for longer periods of time.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, I've tried it. I've had birds for over 30 years. I've tried that for about 20, and it works just fine. We had things like chopped oregano and coconut oil to fresh foods as well. Those are also deterrents, microbial deterrents.
So Jeannie asked, how much do you put in the bird's water? I know you just said what
Quarter
quarter.
quarter cup per gallon, and I just
Yeah.
start with that. Yeah, when I'm doing something like someone had just brought a cockatiel, a baby cockatiel. It couldn't have been more than 2 weeks old to me, and it had a yeast infection in its crop. It was all full of gas, which with cockatiels is just something that you're going to have to deal with now and then. Um, I'm sure in the wild the chicks would just die off, but we can't let that happen. So we intervene with apple cider vinegar, and that often will definitely help that bird out
Yeah.
fast.
And something we do here is, I mean, you can tell. You can tell if you're adding too much because your animals will stop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Try it yourself. That's what I tell people. And for an average bird water dish, I just put in maybe a capful. Something else I do here with it is I train with it. I will take 2 syringes, one full of something good and one full of water mixed with apple cider vinegar. And that's how we train all of our mammals
hmm
and our birds to accept medication because
hmm
apple cider vinegar is pretty strong.
hmm
And so if you can slowly shape their um, voluntarily ingesting it, that really helps pay off. Believe me, I know firsthand that really helps pay off when don't wait for the animal to get sick,
hmm
because then it's too late.
and that there's so much to that, and the first question, and you've heard my talks more times than you probably care to admit, but the first
No,
thing
well,
the first thing that I say is, are your animals surviving, or are they actually thriving? And people will tell me all the time, oh, I wish my bird could fly free in the wild. Well, the wild's a really rough place. It's
yeah,
a
watch any
really rough
wildlife
place.
documentary.
Yes, I mean it's about survival, and birds, animals in general, are often just on the cusp of death, or I mean it's not this paradise where animals are thriving. It's typically about survival. I mean, natural selection. This is about survival of the fittest, and not everybody can be the fittest. In humans too, we all know this. So when we're talking about surviving versus thriving, we want um,
You're like, what do I say this or
yeah,
do
I
I?
know. We can keep animals away from that just surviving line, that disease line, that disorder line. We have the ability as the animal caretakers to keep them away from that line and keep them as happy and healthy as possible. Oh God, I just anthropomorphized. Delete that. I didn't say the word happy, but you get my point. Um, we want to keep them as healthy as possible so that they don't ever come near disease. I know my animals are thriving. I've never had a plucker. I've never had behavioral issues. My animals are getting the nutritional foundation they need through raw whole foods. I did have issues when I had them on some processed foods before, and since taking those off, and I just talked to somebody yesterday about this very same thing. Their birds immediately stopped plucking as soon as they took them off processed foods and shifted them to all raw foods. They saw a change immediately. So keeping them away from that disease line, that just surviving line, and keeping them closer to thriving is what we want. We want to be proactive before disease comes. We want to keep them healthy up to that point. Away from that point, I should say. So adding things like this it creates an environment in their bodies that's going to keep them thriving. And not only that, but keep their microbiome thriving, their bacteria, their gut flora, which I hate that word flora because that is a misnomer, but it keeps that environment thriving so that their body then functions. Because we as animals, are run by our microbiome. I mean, our microbiome, the more research that comes out, and there's a lot of budding research right now, and I spent a week at Howard Hughes Medical Institute last summer that specifically had microbiome scientists there that we worked with, and the research is unbelievable. But one thing that keeps coming back is good sources of dietary fiber to feed those bacteria in your gut to keep your body healthy, your immune system healthy, your digestive health, going. And this, apple cider vinegar is a great way to do that. It has pectin, and pectin is a soluble dietary fiber. So you can definitely attribute that to some great things for your microbiota.
Yeah. And, I was having a conversation here recently where before I address any behavior issue, I ask, is the bird or not the bird, the animal healthy? Because that's first and foremost. If the health isn't addressed prior to, a lot of the behavior work isn't going to make a difference.
Right.
Behavior modification.
Absolutely.
So first, start with a healthy animal, and if it's not healthy, get it the help it needs to get healthy, whether that's medically and or nutritionally.
Yep.
And nutritionally, not or.
Yes, both. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so did you talk everything you wanted to say about the microbiome? I'm just jotting notes down here.
I have no idea. It's so early. You got me. You caught me early. I don't start teaching until at least 8:30 a.m. Central Time. So that's my rule. I'm not a morning person. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of beneficial bacteria in the mother. The mother is the cloudy part of the vinegar. If you're buying vinegar at the grocery store and it's filtered, when you shake it and it doesn't become cloudy, that's a problem. You definitely need the mother. And the mother is an enzyme-rich component of the vinegar. It's enzyme-rich, it's mineral-rich. It contains bioflavonoids, which act as antioxidants to keep those cells healthy and clean. It has the mother also is a vitamin source. It has beta carotene in it, which is the precursor to vitamin A. Vitamin C, vitamin E. It has some B vitamins. I know 1 in 6 for sure. It's tannin rich, so we use it. I know that the word detox is sort of controversial, but it does help bind to certain things in the blood and carry them out instead of letting them store. I breed toucans. Toucans are really sensitive to iron storage disease, so any tannins I can get into their body are good. I have a chick that's in the brooder right here next to me that I'll have to pull out, but we use apple cider vinegar in their hand feeding formula twice a day as well. So,
okay, good to know. Lou asks, how often should you use apple cider vinegar?
You can use it every day
with any animal. You can use it with any meal if you're going to add it in. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to, what you're offering, but I definitely recommend it. You can use it definitely every day.
Okay.
I use it in drinking water. I think drinking water every day is probably your best bet. When for bird owners, longtime bird owners are going to know what I'm talking about. Actually, some short-term bird owners might know this too, but the slime that develops at the bottom of your water bowls every day, it's disgusting. But when you use this, you don't have that issue. It staves off that growth.
Yes. So I know when I started using it, there was some controversy about it. It should only be used a couple of times a week. So I
see no side effects whatsoever in my practice of using it. So I can't speak to. I've never talked to a vet. I can say that I've never talked to a vet that said somebody's pet had too much ACV. I've not heard that before.
Okay. Good. So I'm using it correctly then. And like I said, when I use it to even train the mammals to accept medication, it's nice because I know they're actually ingesting it. They're getting it. And in our shaping plans, we are slowly increasing the amount of apple cider vinegar that we use. Okay, so all right, Nancy Forrester, I'll see you in a couple weeks, asks, she has a bottle. How long does it store? How long does it stay fresh?
I don't have the answer for that. I would think that it would be fine because of the process, the fermentation process. I would think it's fine, but I would probably not recommend using a bottle that's not been used within a year.
Okay, better be safe than sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Jason, you had mentioned earlier, and I think you already touched a little bit on it, that you have seen the benefits firsthand from an animal not being on it.
As far apple cider vinegar, or?
Yeah, that once you've included it into its diet, you saw results within a couple weeks. Am I wrong in saying that?
Well, so there's a lot of variables. It's not just ACV, but when it's combined with a raw food diet and taking animals off of processed foods, I've seen direct benefits. I've had dogs. I've fostered dogs that have come to me who couldn't climb stairs, who couldn't stand, get up on their hind legs. They had yeast infections everywhere. The folds of their skin, the ears, things like that. As soon as we switch them to a raw whole food diet with apple cider vinegar, those things disappear within a matter of weeks. And if we keep them on those diets, it doesn't change. They stay just as vital. There's a couple that are about to turn 16 here that are in that boat that are doing well. I'm starting to believe they're never going to die. But I think it's part of just biologically appropriate foods.
Yeah. Okay. So for those just joining us, we're a half hour into this. I don't know if we're going to make it a whole hour, the benefits of apple cider vinegar. But I have a couple more topics to bring up. But those just joining, we're on here with Dr. Jason Crean talking about the benefits of using apple cider vinegar with our animals. And I see several people jumping in. They're asking what kind. And we have suggested using Bragg's, Braggs, with mother. All right, something else I have written down here to talk about. How do you use it to clean your foods?
So I soak my produce in a veggie wash that's ACV and baking soda. I don't have a measurement on how to make that, but it's not hard to find a recipe. But I do soak produce in that and scrub. Research has shown us that soaking in a veggie wash alone doesn't do the trick. Scrubbing alone doesn't do the trick. Using a surfactant like that plus scrubbing does do the trick. So scrubbing, I have a Scotch pad that I use specifically for my produce, and that's the only thing I use it for. And then, soaking beforehand, a good, usually 10 minutes, and then soaking and or agitation with smaller items like blueberries. Do not scrub blueberries with a Scotch pad. We all have lives to lead. I've gotten that question more than once, but agitating blueberries and grapes and things like that vigorously in a strainer with that on there is pretty helpful.
So we're talking about soaking and scrubbing due to, you start doing research, because just listening to you, it's really opened my eyes over the years of the different things I've been doing. And that soaking and scrubbing of fruits and vegetables, you're helping get the pesticides, herbicides, everything that is on the skin of the animal, because so much is being used as preservatives.
Yeah, to stave off. Pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides are, I don't think it's any secret how prevalently they're used. There's some that are more dangerous than others. There's some that are cyanide based that I tend to avoid. Which is one of the reasons I don't typically purchase any produce that comes out of Chile. it's very helpful to get those things off without killing off all the bacteria that inherently lives on the surface of produce. Um, a lot of people ask me about probiotics, and I'm not a probiotic fan, because it's very hard to determine what survives the GI tract through that process of digestion. Um, but some of the best ways to get your microbiome healthy is to eat raw whole food, because it comes in with bacteria that um, help that are helpful to the body. So, sprouted foods and things like that are definitely a good source of that. Fermented vegetables are an excellent source of lots of things. I know Dr. Becker, she just recently posted on her own group, her own page, a recipe for fermenting vegetables. But that fermentation process produces some awesome things for health, for birds and for us.
And yeah, I just wanted to touch on, you said you stay away from fruits and vegetables that coming in from Chile. And I saw that on your live stream in your Team Thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So that live stream, you give a lot of little quick live streams that really, and that's how I process information, because so much can be overwhelming for me.
Mm-hmm.
Nutrition is like Japanese for me, but I'm learning so much. And when you provide those small little snippets, live streams, that's what sticks in my head.
Yeah, one of my degrees is in learning, so I'm glad to hear you say that. At least I'm being effective, because half the battle is getting the information to people in,
Retaining it.
no pun intended, digestible forms. But there's my corny joke of the morning. But yeah, it's that's good to hear, because it does. It's just those little things, and a lot of those will say product of the USA. And then when you look closer, it's sourced from another country. So unless you're really reading those labels, and in this country, every bit of produce that you purchase has to have the country of origin on it. It's not hard to find. It's not hard to find things.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that are more. One of the reasons that I think you have to buy apple cider vinegar organic is because of the amount of things that they use on apples in this country. There's up to 32 different pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides that I've found that they use on apples. So I would never buy a conventional apple. I would only buy organic apples. And even organic apples have to be clean because they have a wax on them and things like that. So, it depends on what type of produce you're talking about, because they're all processed, not processed, but they're all produced differently.
Wow. That's pretty eye-opening.
Scary.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so we've talked about many different things, and I know a couple of different people are commenting with questions. You do use apple cider vinegar with sprouting, and which we're going to do another live stream interview with you on sprouting and the Parrot Project and in the Pig Project. The Pig Project people are really excited. They can't wait. They're like, what is that? I'm like, is anybody interested in a live stream interview with Jason Crean on sprouting? They're like, well, yeah, because we don't know what it is. So,
well, and it's sad, because sprouting is just, it's basic biology 101. And it is an amazing thing to do for a host of animals. Dogs and cats can eat sprouts to help with microbiome health.
we can.
Yeah, and we should be. I'm not that good at it myself. I'm working towards it, but I always say our animals eat better than we do. But
And I was just getting ready to say, if
yeah, totally.
We start sprouting, if I could just eat as healthy as my animals.
Yep. Well, and you've heard my talk, because I've done it at the center. Better eating through better feeding. You do develop better habits when you're producing these foods for your animals, because they're more readily available, and you're more likely to try them out. So, but sprouting has so many benefits, and I have a lot of people who come to me saying, my vet said it's very dangerous to sprout. It's not. It's very
What?
easy to keep it safe, and mainly they're just talking about the bacteria or
Oh, that can grow.
fungal, and yeah, that can grow on sprouts. Using apple cider vinegar can take care of that. You don't have to worry about any of that, but you have to worry about that just as much as you would with any type of produce. Anything anything that can spoil, you have the same issues, and sprouts are really no different. I don't recommend buying sprouts at the store because you don't know how long they've been in that little plastic container.
Mhm.
That's where problems can arise. But growing them yourselves and keeping them in a medium, spraying them down with apple cider vinegar or grapefruit seed extract, keeping them in an acidic environment like that staves off those things, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
I pulled my group, which is thousands, and I said, has anybody ever had a bird whose animal got sick because of the raw foods that it was feeding, in particular sprouts? And no one has ever heard of that. They just have been scared into thinking that that's a realistic thing. But if you're doing it right, and anytime you're sprouting, you're leaving these things like apple cider vinegar on the sprouts while during the sprouting process, you're fine. There's
Yeah.
nothing to worry about.
I've sprouted before. I want to get it started again, which is why I'm just like, I listen to what the members and the project members here, what they want,
Mm-hmm.
and we just do it as a whole. So we're getting ready to cover sprouting in our projects. So Sarah says, can you sprout for just a single bird or
Of
single?
course,
Yeah.
of course, yeah.
And
And
why
go
not
to
keep
your
yourself for yourself, Sarah?
yeah go to your local health food store. Get a sprouting jar. They typically all have them, um, and they're just a glass jar with a metal strainer on top. You soak the seeds for a specific amount of time. On my raw whole food group, we do have a soak and sprout schedule that gives you an idea on how long certain things need to soak and sprout over others, because different seeds and legumes have different soaking and sprouting times. But on my Team Thrive program, we actually just talked about this in detail, and I showed them the members of Team Thrive. I showed specifically what we sprout in, how we sprout, what we dip in, as far as the GSE and ACV, things like that. So we talk a lot about the method, but it's not difficult. You can buy a soak and sprout mix at your local health food store as well, and just start doing that in a jar. And if you get a couple of jars, you can just keep rotating them and always have a steady flow of fresh food for your birds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you have, it's about a quarter till 10. Can we take some questions, like maybe five
Sure.
minutes worth of questions?
Yeah.
Um, so let's see. Okay. Well, we're going to, Susie, I know a lot of people are on here asking about sprouting. We're going to do another live stream. I know Summer had asked about it as well. We'll be doing a live stream with Dr. Jason Crean in the Parrot Project and in the Pig Project. Kim Wendy, she's a horse trainer, positive reinforcement horse trainer out of Texas. She asks, is there a difference between organic versus certified organic?
Oh boy.
There goes our 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, that's a good question, and I don't have the answer. Certified organic means it's gone through the review process in some way. Um, I know there's people who are probably watching this jumping up and down, going, "No, no, no!" But it goes through some kind of process. It may not be the best process and most reliable process, but it goes through some type of certification. So if you see something that's just got the word organic on it, it should be certified organic somewhere on the label. But you'll have to do the research on that product in particular. In
Oh,
particular.
okay. Susie asked this question, but I think you already answered it. Do you use ACV in hand feeding formula?
Yep. Twice a day, I add a capful per cup, which is, I don't know, it's probably less than a teaspoon. You don't need that much. But I make sure I vigorously shake it up, and I add it right to the hand feeding formula. Can I show an example?
Sure.
He's pretty loud this morning, but that's an Araceli chick who's about 3 weeks old now. They are prone to yeast infections because they're on a fruit-based diet, so there's a lot of sugars in their diet. And I mean, he's got energy. His skin looks great, and that's because I'm fueling his microbiome
How
by
old is
giving
he?
him things like that. About 3 weeks.
Okay.
And so they wean about 7 weeks of age or so. But you can hear him going. He's got lots of energy, but that's because we're giving him what he needs.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, did you say that's a green Araceli?
That's a green Araceli. Yep.
Okay. So ask your questions, guys, because we're going to wrap it up here in a couple of minutes. Leah asks, is there any preference between using apple cider vinegar or grapefruit seed extract? What am I saying?
GSE, grapefruit seed extract. No, and I mean, I think there's just as much controversy about using either one. In science, for every claim, there's a counterclaim, and it's a little difficult to wade through the research and really see what's been thoroughly tested. As far as GSE, I will use GSE with sprouting. Certain things, especially things that have a short sprout time, that I really need to make sure are clean. When I ran plates at the university, I saw more bacterial growth on apple cider vinegar than I did on GSE. So I know GSE was more effective in that way. It doesn't mean that ACV is not useful or beneficial. It clearly is. It has lots of benefits that we use it for. But as far as sprouting, I tend to use more GSE than I do. I use it more often, I should say, than I do ACV.
Okay, interesting. Good to know. Another live stream.
Mm-hmm.
I want to put this up here real quick because Kimberly asked, would I be open to having a Sprouting 101 class at the center with Jason? Kimberly, we're going to do that within the Parrot Project, but I do want to announce that Jason is coming to the center this summer. We're getting it put on the schedule. He may be coming here a couple of times this year. Jason and I are still working behind the scenes on a couple of different things. So stay tuned on our events page of the Animal Behavior Center's Facebook website. Summer asks, can apple cider vinegar help with plucking skin issues? I know
there's no way to know that for sure because we don't know the source of the plucking, because we know it's probably multifactorial. I think it can help reduce inflammation. Yeah, I think it can help with reducing inflammation. But I wish we could say what would help with plucking, but it really is multifactorial. I think you need to reduce the anxiety and stress in certain areas, but we don't know what the source of stress or anxiety can even be. If it's reproductive stress, if it's environmental stress. I mean, there's so many different factors. That's really hard to say. I think the more diversity you give the birds, the more in their diet, the more raw foods over processed foods, because those processed foods will increase inflammation. I think the more healthy fats, for example, omega-3s you give in the form of tree nuts, for example. That's another thing I hear a lot about, that people are told that tree nuts are bad for their birds because they're fat. If you've read any research since like 1989, we know omega-3s are very beneficial, and tree nuts are 90% polyunsaturated fats. So tree nuts should definitely be in the diets of our birds, but birds should not have too much of any one thing. They should have a very, very diverse diet every single day. And if your bird's not eating that diversity, you need to offer it for weeks to months, sometimes years, and just keep doing it so that your birds continue to eat.
We're doing, excuse me, we're doing that right now in the parrot project and in the pig project with the chop, incorporating chop and shaping how we're doing it. And it's been since the middle of December when Patricia's son was here. And this is the middle of February, 2 months. 2 months. We've been incorporating it every day for 2 months, shaping that change, and it's working. So I didn't expect, many people are like, I'm not seeing the benefits in a couple days, done. I was going to mention something else you touched on, Jason, and we'll wrap it up here in a couple minutes. Excuse me. It's so important to work as a team because, like you said, behavior isn't easy. Lives aren't easy. Watch a wildlife documentary. Life isn't fair. But
I say that every day.
Yeah. My mom told me that one time. That's especially just not fair.
Especially when I'm shoveling my driveway. Life isn't fair. You like snow? Come on out.
Hey, I've been out there shoveling several times. I'm like, I gotta do it again.
You're probably whistling while you work. That's just terribly sick.
But that's the importance in working as a team because, like you said, it may just not be one thing. It could be numerous things. We just did a podcast on that. So
well, and you were part of that team when I run my zoo biology course at the university for the undergrads. A lot of that is their first exposure into applied biology, and I handle the nutrition portion of that course, and they're doing the research on processed versus raw whole foods and things like that. But I pull in a host of different people. You did amazing work with them.
Thank you.
As far as positive reinforcement, they ate it up. And their student evaluations, and I have to tell you this, at the end of the semester, were glowing. The course was extremely successful to them. They felt like they really got an idea. And I've got a couple who are now applying as interns at the local zoos here. And that's in part thanks to you for the work that you did. And I brought in, Jean Dubach, who you've met, the geneticist, Sarah Long, who's a population biologist. Just bringing in these experts to really show how biology actually works is invaluable. And that's what makes those biology courses in the Department of Biology at the university where I teach so successful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for asking me. Are you going to do that again?
Yeah. They asked if we could do it right away, but we need to space out the semesters that we offer it. So I think the next time we'll offer it is a year from now. But they said the reviews were glowing, and we need more courses like this because this generation needs more application. They need, you can't sit in a room and learn about molecules that without context. It's a waste. But when you see it in action is when we learn.
Good. Okay, so a lot of people are asking Jason how to get a hold of you. Here's Jason's direct email address. Hope you're not busy for the next hour.
Yeah, I've got a 3-hour teleconference starting at noon here. So what I'll probably do is if you email me, I'll send you a link to join Team Thrive if you need a more specific consult. The answer, I can't give simple answers to most questions. There just aren't simple answers, as we just spent an hour talking about one thing.
Cider vinegar, which we didn't know we could talk an hour about.
Exactly. So I think that if you join Team Thrive,
which is a Facebook group.
Yes, and it's similar to your parrot project. We have a lot of exclusive content on there. I do live streams. I will do quarterly Q&As, and I will this summer launch a course on Avian Nutrition 101 that will be free to anyone that's joined the Team Thrive program already. So there's no extra fee for that for people that are part of that membership already. And we'll talk about, the science of nutrition.
Yeah, and I'm in Team Thrive, and I look at it as a perspective for all animals across the board, including myself. So
And
that's
see, can I speak to that for a second? Because
sure.
this drives me insane. There's a lot of micromanagers out there on the interwebs, and you've had to deal with them probably as much as I have. And I often get, well, this is human research, so it doesn't count, or this was tested on rats, so it doesn't count. There's no studies testing specific foods on parrots and things like that outside of some very skewed, biased studies, very, very skewed. When it comes to the studies of what they're eating in the wild, that's also very specific because they're looking typically at one species at one point of the year, things like that. So it's very, very hard to wrap our minds around. But how science works is extrapolation. We need to look at what this certain things do to animal tissue for animal tissue, and then we need to extrapolate them for ourselves. I mean, most things aren't tested on human beings. Most things are tested in animal subjects to see how they react, so that we can apply it to human medicine. So people need to understand that the research is, when I hear people say, oh, well, there's no proof that coconut oil or ACV is beneficial for parrots. And I said, well, there's no proof that broccoli is good for parrots. There's no research. Go ahead and look into the scientific research. There's nothing that says how beneficial broccoli is to parrots. We have to extrapolate. This is what broccoli has in it. These are the different types of macro and micronutrients that we can get out of broccoli. So we have to assume that that would be good for our birds if they're eating it. So I just wanted to say that because that's a big misnomer anytime you talk about something like this.
Sure. And you can even look at that from a behavior perspective, whereas Skinner, the laws of behavior were first tested and created with rats and pigeons. That's why we have Cello roller pigeon here.
Yep.
Because
well, that's not really why you have him there.
But it sounds good.
That was a beautiful mistake. That's what I call Cello. A beautiful mistake.
For those that Cello came here via Jason. And now, and Cello is an awesome ambassador. And I love working with different animals that people think that are pests. They're pests because they quickly outwit us. And I always tell everybody, I make a joke saying my roller pigeon can do anything your border collie can do. And it's pretty, it's pretty accurate. So Jason, people are wanting to find out, okay, so I've shown you, this is Team Thrive. You can join his membership program on Facebook. Just type in Team Thrive and it'll pop right up.
Yeah, if you want to join and see the benefits, you can go to beaksbirdhouse.com and just click on the Thrive button at the top, and it shows you everything there.
Okay, so this is the website you just mentioned.
Yep.
Ready to go to.
Yeah, just click on Thrive at the top, and the information's there.
Okay, perfect. And I've got a couple of things I want to share before we end. And Jason, thank you so much for going live with me again.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I look forward to having you in both of the projects. But real quick, before we wrap it up, take a look at our website, which is theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. And you can also find us on Facebook. Obviously, you know that because you're on here. Sorry, there's a lot of things to put in here. We have a year's full of planned live streaming webinars across species and different behaviors, the laws of behavior. You can find that at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. We just opened up registration for teaching your bird to forage. Our next one is on pigs, but those are free for level 2 members and for people in the Parrot Project. We just launched, you're going to see this coming up this week. We're having our first ever enrichment workshop. It's a 2-day workshop and it's well thought out, including topics like contra freeloading, how enrichment affects behavior, using training as a behavior modification plan. And last but definitely not least, we have an upcoming workshop in October with the awesome Dr. Deb Jones. So you can find that all on our website at theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. Jason, thanks so much. Any last words?
When you know better, do better.
Hey!
Is that
what you... Yeah. I always say when we know better, we do better. Let's do better.
Yep.
All right. Great. And Jason, feel free to go back and comment on anything in the live stream after it's ended.
Okay, great.
All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
All right. See you, Jason.